Absentee father tried to reconcile after years of silence and absence, but am I obliged to mend the broken ties he's ignored? My mom and dad married young and had 6 ladder step kids. The longest gap in ages between us is 27 months. My dad found a job that paid well, but he would be home for 2 weeks every 3 months or so. When he was home, he'd show some interest in us, but most times he'd be sleeping or watching TV. One night when he was gone for work and we were with our aunt since my mom had to work, the whole neighborhood broke into our house and completely destroyed and stole everything. When my mom took the cops to our neighbor's house, she pointed out every house that helped and said what they took because she wouldn't be the only one in trouble. After that, we went to our aunt's and my mom called my dad, told him what happened and asked him repeatedly to come home. He chose to stay at work. After that night we didn't see him for about a year and a half. When he did show up, it would be in sporadic intervals from 10 months to 2 years apart and only for a few minutes at a time, but always when my mom wasn't around. When I turned 14, he started coming around more often and started spending an hour or two with us every couple months. He took a special interest in us living with him and would make a point to say it every time he saw us. At 15 I moved in and everything went to downhill fast. He started mentally and verbally attacking my looks and my body. He'd talk about women often and how they should always submit no matter what. He would give me something only to take it back. He gave me an allowance but would be mad if I spent it. He got upset with me for not talking to him enough, but would give one-word responses when I tried to start a conversation. Then there was a situation where I found some pretty damning evidence of his mistreatment of my mom on his computer. I was a busy kid with little to no free time. I was in sports, after-school clubs, student council, theater and prom/homecoming committee. When homecoming came around I asked if I could go. He agreed and was reminded almost every week of when it was. The night of homecoming, when my date arrived to pick me up, he pulls me to the side and said I can't go because I had to help him pack and move out of our house. Completely blindsided because what? We did not discuss moving and why would you wait until homecoming night to say something? We went back and forth for a little bit and I offered to come straight home afterwards instead of spending the night with my friends like I intended. He was annoyed but agreed. The dance was over at 9, I got home at 9:45. I was helping pack along with some cousins he invited over, but I guess I wasn't going fast enough. He started yelling and he ended up laying hands on me. I left immediately and called my aunt who came to get me. He started flooding my phone with texts and calls saying how ungrateful I am, how I cost him so much money, how bad of a person I am, etc. I didn't respond to any of it. After about 2 months, I started reaching out to him about my clothes and belongings, asking if we could talk, etc. He never responded and blocked my number. I went to his house a few months after that, but, when he opened the door and saw it was me, he slammed the door in my face and started cussing at me through the door until I left. It has been almost 12 years since then. On to a few weeks ago, I get a text from a random number calling me by name. Me, who is this? Him, it's your dad. Me, what do you want? Him, I want to see about me being your dad and you being my daughter. A wave of confusion, disbelief and finally rage washed over me all at once. I responded that horse is dead. He waited a few minutes and replied, it's not dead, just on life support, but with some work, it can get better. I blocked him and called my mom. She said, that's still your dad. You need to let that hurt go and talk to him. Her response is what has me second guessing the way I handled this situation and has me thinking that maybe I was a little too harsh. Maybe trying to explore a relationship with him is something I should do. However, if this were a random person doing these things, it would be cut and dried and never speak to them again, so why should I give him another chance just because we are related? Why should I do the work on his terms when he wasn't willing to meet me or speak to me on mine? Why do I feel like the bad guy for making a stance for my own mental well-being? Why is it okay for him to mistreat everyone and only when he's ready is when it will be resolved? Update 1. I'm long-winded, deal with it. Lol my mother, for all the people downing on my mother. Just know. Find somewhere else to dump your trauma. My mother is a hard worker and giver and has been all her life. She graduated HS at 16, was a regional manager by 20, and purchased her first house in cash by 22. Needless to say, she was and still is, doing well for herself. She volunteers to feeding programs, clothes/shoe giveaways, she donates money to charity, buys strangers food and clothes, babysits kids of struggling parents, or helps them financially, take meals and clothes to senior citizens, even gives what she has right off her back. She has always been a giver and has a big heart for everyone. Even the people talking bad about her, she would still see that your needs are met. Sometimes a little kindness goes a long way. The break-in, some people saying it's fake, I wish it was. We were terrified and I hope that never happens to anyone. Like I said, my mother was well off, but we lived in a not so well off neighborhood. The kids in the house behind us would steal our stuff often. They took our bikes, our balls, our swimming pool, our coats or clothes if we left them outside. Sometimes we'd get home and they'd be running out of our backyard because they were playing on our playset, which they eventually took, too. When we would tell her, she'd say, just let them have it. If they had to steal it, they may not have a way to get it themselves. Then she'd go buy us another one, because she's always been forgiving to others. However, because of this, the neighborhood knew we had nice things in our house. The night of the break-in, That was the house she took the cops to. The mother of the kids is the one who told on 5 other houses. Surprise, surprise, they were all related, so it was basically one big family, all living close to each other who did it. When we left to live with our aunt, they broke into our house 3 more times after that, I guess to get what they didn't take the last time. 3. The evidence on the computer. There were emails of him asking his cousins and siblings to lie for him, saying they saw him send my mom more money than he did, or how they witnessed my mom not letting him see us. There were court documents of their divorce proceedings, and a list of things he asked for, including a house my mom helped her sister purchase and the house we were currently living in that she bought with her own money before they were together. Lastly, a bunch of recordings of my dad calling my mom on the phone, without her knowledge or consent, and basically provoking her repeatedly to try to get a reaction. During the calls, he brought us up many times and called her a terrible mother for keeping him away from us, among many other things I won't repeat. She reminded him, he chose to leave us and that wasn't on her. She never kept us from him. He's a grown man and it's not her responsibility to make sure he maintains a relationship with his own children. There was a bunch of back and forth, but I guess she never gave him the reaction he was looking for because they all ended the same. He always got mad and ended up yelling, to which she said, "If you can't be an adult and talk, I'm hanging up." While most of these were sort of old, there were a few that were recent at the time, like really recent. The last recording I listened to was 2 weeks after I moved in. He told her that he finally got me to move in with him because I told him I hated her since she's a bad mom. That was the one that broke her. She started crying and basically told him, he can say whatever he wanted to say, but that wouldn't change anything. She would be praying for him to find peace in his soul so he won't have to put others down just to feel powerful. To this he laughed, told her she's being emotional, then said, "Whatever. Here we go with your fake tears. Are you done?" And hung up laughing. I was disgusted and above all, pissed. This whole time he's been telling me how much he missed us, how it's not his fault he doesn't see us more often, and how he's always wanted us. Reality hit me and turns out, it was just lies. I never told him she was a bad parent or that I hated her. He was absolutely using me just to get under her skin. Using his own child like a pawn in his ultimate get-back game to hurt the mother of his kids after essentially trying to make us homeless in court. I realized, that's why he had been adamant about asking every time he saw us to move in, and why he always made it seem like a dream to live with him. He wanted his court case to be stronger so he could legally steal from her. He coerced and manipulated me, and like a dummy, I fell for it, and I started to hate him for it. Towards the end of our relationship, I absolutely became distant, stopped talking to him unless I had to, and barely ate. I was a busy kid because I didn't want to be home. I figured if I drowned myself in sports, after school programs or volunteer work, it would be less time I'd have to be around him, so that's what I did. 4. The conversation with my mom. Of course the conversation was a lot longer than the 4 words I shared on my post, and her comment I shared was not the end of the conversation. We talked for about an hour and a half about it. At first she was listening, asking a question every now and again, and overall letting me vent. She made the comment I shared, and when I voiced the same concerns I voiced on here, she heard me out. She said I should forgive him, not for him, but for me, because she doesn't want me holding on to hate in my heart, and not to have regrets about not pursuing a relationship if he were to pass away. She never pressured me or made me think that was the only option I had. At the end of the conversation, she said it was my decision and she'd support me in whatever choice I made. She is the furthest from a doormat, an enabler, or weak like some of you said. She is the strongest person I know, because WHO among you can look at someone who did all that, but still forgive them? Update 2. A few days after I blocked my dad, my siblings randomly started asking about him and if I had spoken to or wanted to hang out with him. This was weird for several reasons since, 1. We never talk about him at all, and 2. They knew from past conversations I don't want to have a relationship with him. So if they do talk about him, it's never with me. At first I was brushing it off, but after a few times, I started inquiring why they kept asking. They'd either changed the subject or made an excuse like, no reason, or I was just curious. About 3 weeks ago, I was talking to my older brother and he mentioned having to run an errand. I offered to go with him. He hesitated, changed the subject and tried to leave. I asked what he was going to do since I had stuff to do also. That's when he said to fix a truck. He said he won't be long, so I asked whose truck he was going to go look at and if he needed my help again. That's when he finally said it was our dad's truck. Confused, I asked how long he'd been talking to our dad for him to feel comfortable to go help him fix his truck. Apparently this isn't new news. My brother has been seeing and helping our dad for years. From that conversation, I found out all of my siblings had been talking to and meeting up with our dad. They'd go to his house, dinners, shopping, shows, etc. Side note, no, I haven't told my siblings about the things I found on his computer, or about the things he said to me while I was living with him. I don't think that will do anything but cause more confusion or strife. If they choose to be around him and he is being a dad to them, then great for them. Anyway, after I blocked him, I guess he asked them to ask me why I wouldn't speak with him. I was kind of upset with them because none of them had the decency to just be honest with me about their intentions and why they kept bringing it up, but I was more upset with our dad because why aren't you respecting my answer? I started to be a bit distant from my siblings because of this, and my oldest sister noticed. She came to me about a week ago and asked if I wanted to join them for a family dinner. I said no thanks, so she left it alone. A few days later, she asked again. My answer hadn't changed, so she said I should just try it. She assured me she'd sit beside me or in between us if my only option was to sit by our dad. She said I didn't have to talk to him if I didn't want to and could just talk to her, but she wanted me to be there too. Maybe because I wanted answers from him. Maybe to get her to leave me alone about it. Maybe just to see what I would feel like being around him after all this time. Maybe it was none of these, or all of them at once. I think I was just over the whole thing, so I agreed to go. And oh boy, did it go. So 2 nights ago we all met up at a restaurant. When I pulled up, my dad was waiting outside the boodling. I sat in the car until the rest of my siblings got there and we all walked up together. When our dad saw me, he went to hug me, but I walked past him. He moved to the front of me as we were walking so he could hold the door open for me. I just gave an awkward side eye and walked in the door. When we were seated, I sat at the furthest end of the table away from him, and my sister sat beside me like she said she would. She touched my hand under the table and whispered, "Just breathe," to me. I hadn't realized how tense I was until she said that because I could physically feel my body relax then get really hot after I exhaled. At first, my dad tried to talk to me and ask questions about life, but I only gave 1 or 2 word responses or a head nod. Eventually, he started talking to the rest of my siblings. I spent the rest of the time mainly in silence, just pushing the food on my plate around. Towards the end of the meal, I excused myself to the restroom but left my bag and phone there. When I got back to the table, everyone was gone, and so was my stuff. I looked out the window and saw them walking towards the car, so I went to head out to see who had my stuff. When I came to the front doors, my dad was waiting there blocking the doorway with my stuff in his hands. I looked at my stuff and then at him. He went to hug me again, but I took a step back. He started talking about how he wanted us to be a family and how he knows I'm mad at him right now, etc. But honestly, I just started to disassociate. In his whole speech, I never heard an apology. Just how my emotions were keeping me from opening back up to him like old times. After a while, I reached for my stuff again, and that's when he grabbed me and hugged me. I wanted to push him off, but I'm barely over 5 foot and he's a lot taller and stronger than I am. He said, "You know I love you, right? Right? Right?" And wouldn't let go of me until I said sure. He kissed my forehead, handed me my stuff and left out the door. At this point, I'm just numb. I cried all the tears I could. I've screamed all the screams, grieved the childhood I'll never have and the future I can't see him in. Grieved all the memories only I have to share with myself. Like being the youngest MVP as a freshman on a team of seniors who went to states and won 3rd place. Like how I broke the school record 3 years in a row, or how whenever I was on stage during a play, I saw everyone's parent but my own. How I walked myself out on senior recognition night and waved to a crowd full of strangers alone. How I never got to go to a daddy/daughter anything, or how I could never call him up to talk about my day or boy trouble. How he won't be the one walking me down the aisle, or be a part of my children's life if or when I have them. This night solidified to me the hunger I had for him to show that he actually wanted me was gone. The anticipation of him saying, "Baby, I messed up, how can we fix it together?" That never came. At the end of the day, he was still him. A smooth talker who only wants what he wants and nothing more. I've checked out with him and I don't think I'll be opening up this door again. Sorry this isn't the rainbows and sunshine ending some of you are expecting, but life doesn't always go to plan. I will continue to work on me and trying my best to be the example my mother set for me to forgive. However, I guess that brings me to the only question that's left unanswered. Can I truly and deeply forgive him and never want to see him again? Update 3. It's been about 3 weeks since that awkward dinner, and I've been doing a lot of soul searching. I decided to meet with a therapist who specializes in family trauma. After our first 2 sessions, she helped me realize something important. Forgiveness doesn't mean reconciliation. I can forgive my dad for my own peace without letting him back into my life. Last weekend, something unexpected happened. I was at the grocery store picking up some things for dinner when I literally bumped carts with my dad in the produce section. For a moment, we both just froze. He recovered first and started with the usual "How are you? I've been trying to reach you." I cut him off and said I needed to go. As I turned to leave, he grabbed my cart. "Why can't you just let the past go? Your siblings have," he said loud enough that people started looking. Something in me snapped. Maybe it was the therapy, maybe it was the public setting where I knew he wouldn't make a scene, but I finally said what I've been holding in. "You know what? I did let it go. That's why I can stand here and not hate you. But letting go doesn't mean I have to let you in." I lowered my voice. "You never once apologized for putting your hands on me, for slamming a door in my face, for trying to manipulate me against Mom, for missing every important moment of my life." His face changed. "I was going through a lot back then, so was I interrupted. "I was a child. Your child." He started with the same old speech about family and blood, but I just shook my head. Family isn't just blood. It's showing up. It's being reliable. It's apologizing when you hurt someone instead of making excuses. I could see other shoppers pretending not to watch our exchange. An older lady nearby was nodding slightly as I spoke. "I forgive you," I said finally. "Not because you deserve it, but because I deserve peace. But forgiveness doesn't mean I want you in my life. I need you to respect that." Something shifted in his eyes, maybe understanding, maybe just resignation. He let go of my cart and stepped back. I just want a chance. You had chances. Years of them. I'm not that desperate little girl anymore. As I walked away, I felt lighter somehow. My phone started buzzing almost immediately, my siblings in the group chat. Apparently Dad had already called my brother to complain about our encounter. Some of them think I'm being too harsh, but my oldest sister texted me privately. I get it. I remember more than they do. That was validating in a way I didn't expect. Maybe we all have different versions of our dad because he treated us differently. Or maybe some of us are just better at compartmentalizing. Yesterday, I got a letter in the mail. No return address, but I recognized his handwriting. I stared at it for hours, debating whether to open it or throw it away. Finally, I decided to open it, but on my terms. I took it to my therapist's office for our session today. The letter wasn't what I expected. It wasn't long or emotional. Just a few lines. I don't know how to be what you need. I never learned how to be a father. That's not an excuse. Just the truth. I'm sorry for hurting you. You deserved better. My therapist asked how I felt reading it. Honestly? Conflicted. It's the closest thing to a real apology I've ever gotten from him, but it also feels too little, too late. And there's that nagging feeling. Is this genuine, or is this just another manipulation tactic? Update 4. It's been about 2 months since I received that letter, and life has a funny way of continuing whether you want it to or not. I've been seeing my therapist regularly, and we've been digging deeper into what healthy boundaries actually mean for me. Last week, I was at my oldest sister's house helping her organize her garage. She's nesting, baby number 2 is due in 3 months. While sorting through some old boxes, we found a bunch of photos from when we were kids. There were several of all 6 of us with Dad during one of his rare visits home. In one photo, I couldn't have been more than 3, sitting on his shoulders at what looked like a county fair. I was smiling so big my eyes were nearly closed. You don't remember that day, do you? My sister asked quietly. I shook my head. There are so many memories I don't have. He was actually really good with you when you were little, she said, carefully. Before the job that took him away all the time. You used to follow him everywhere. Something about that hit me hard. The idea that there was a version of us, of him, that I can't even remember. A father I might have loved without reservation once, and who might have loved me back in the only way he knew how. I took the photo home. Not to reminisce, but as a reminder that people are complicated. That relationships aren't black and white. 3 days ago, my brother called to tell me Dad was in the hospital. Nothing life-threatening, just routine gallbladder surgery, but he'd asked if I'd come. I said no immediately, almost reflexively. Then I felt guilty. Then angry that I felt guilty. The emotional whiplash was exhausting. He's not asking you to move in or be best friends, my brother said. Just to see him for 5 minutes. Why? So he can feel better about himself? I snapped. Maybe, my brother admitted. Or maybe he's just scared. People get weird when they're facing their mortality, even for something minor. I told him I'd think about it, then spent the next 24 hours oscillating between determination not to go and wondering if I'd regret it if something went wrong. I even made a pros and cons list like a crazy person. Yesterday morning, I found myself in the hospital parking lot, sitting in my car with the engine off for nearly 30 minutes. A nurse gave me a concerned look as she walked by my window for the second time. I finally got out, walked to the entrance, then turned around and went back to my car 3 separate times. On the 4th attempt, I made it to the information desk and got his room number. Standing outside his door, I could hear the TV playing some game show. I knocked softly. Come in, he called, sounding tired. When I stepped in, his eyes widened. He looked smaller somehow, lying in the hospital bed with an IV in his arm. You came, he said, fumbling for the remote to turn down the volume. Just for a minute, I said, staying near the door. How are you feeling? Like someone took a rototiller to my insides. He attempted a smile. But they say I'll be fine. An awkward silence stretched between us. I shifted my weight from one foot to the other. I didn't think you'd come, he finally said. I almost didn't. He nodded slowly. Thank you for being here anyway. I moved a little closer, still keeping more distance than a typical hospital visit. Your letter, I started, then paused. Did you mean it? He looked down at his hands. Every word. You hurt me, I said, my voice smaller than I wanted it to be. Not just when you put hands on me that night. All of it. The years of absence. The manipulations. Making me feel like I was nothing. I know, he said quietly. I know that now. I don't know if I can ever trust you, I continued. I don't know if I want to try. He was quiet for a long moment. That's fair. More than fair. I stood there awkwardly, not knowing what to say next. Part of me wanted to run out the door. Another part, a smaller part I barely recognized, wanted to sit in the chair next to his bed. Your mom did a good job with you, he said suddenly. You're strong. Principled. I wish I could take credit, but I can't. No, I agreed. You can't. A nurse came in then to check his vitals, and I used the interruption to say I needed to go. He didn't try to make me stay. Thank you for coming, he said as I reached the door. I mean it. I nodded and left without looking back. In my car, I didn't cry like I expected to. Instead, I felt oddly calm. Like I'd faced something I'd been running from for a long time. This morning, I texted my brother to ask how Dad was doing. A small step, but it felt right. I don't know what happens next. I don't know if there's a place for him in my life, or what that place might look like, but for the first time, I feel like I'm making choices instead of just reacting to him. My therapist says healing isn't linear. That it's okay to take 2 steps forward and 1 step back. That forgiveness is a process, not an event. I'm still figuring out what that means for me. For us. If there even is an us to figure out. Update 5. It's been 6 months since my last update, and I'm still processing everything that's happened. After my hospital visit with my dad, I decided to take a step back from the whole situation. I needed space to think without the constant pressure from my siblings or the emotional whiplash of seeing him. My therapist suggested I journal about my childhood memories, both the ones I remember and the ones my siblings have shared with me. It's been revealing, to say the least. The photo my sister showed me of me sitting on my dad's shoulders opened up something in me. I found myself asking my siblings more questions about those early years, before everything fell apart. My oldest sister told me about how Dad used to call me his little shadow because I followed him everywhere. My brother remembered him teaching me to ride a bike when I was 4, running alongside me until I could balance on my own. These stories feel like they belong to someone else's life, not mine. There's a disconnect between that little girl and who I am now that feels impossible to bridge. 3 months ago, my dad was hospitalized again. This time it was serious, a heart attack. My brother called me at 2 a.m., his voice shaking. "It's bad," was all he said. I drove to the hospital in a daze, not even fully dressed, my hair still wet from the shower I'd taken before bed. When I arrived, my siblings were already there, huddled in the waiting room. The doctor came out shortly after and told us they were taking him into surgery. We waited for 6 hours, barely speaking, just existing in that sterile space with its 2 bright lights and uncomfortable chairs. He survived, but it was close. Too close. When they finally let us see him in the ICU, he looked so small and fragile, hooked up to machines that beeped and whirred. His skin was ashen, and for the first time, I noticed how much he'd aged. The gray in his hair, the deep lines around his eyes. I hung back while my siblings went to his bedside. He was barely conscious, but when he saw me standing by the door, he lifted his hand slightly. I didn't move closer, but I didn't leave either. That felt like progress, somehow. During his recovery, I found myself visiting more often than I expected to. Not every day like my siblings, but a couple times a week. We didn't talk much. Sometimes I'd just sit in the chair by the window, reading a book while he slept. Other times, we'd watch game shows together in silence. One afternoon, as I was about to leave, he said, "I've been thinking about what you said. About hurting you." His voice was raspy from the breathing tube they'd had to use during surgery. I was so focused on what I thought being a father meant, providing money, having authority, that I missed what it actually means. I sat back down, not sure what to say. My own father, he continued, was a hard man. Never said he loved me, not once. Beat me for the smallest things. I swore I'd never be like him. He laughed bitterly. And look what I did instead. Different kind of damage, same result. "Why are you telling me this now?" I asked. "Because I'm running out of time," he said simply. "And because you deserve to know that none of it, was your fault." I felt tears prickling behind my eyes but refused to let them fall. "I know that," I said. "Intellectually, at least. The rest is complicated." He nodded. "I understand if you can't forgive me. I wouldn't forgive me either." As I was leaving, he called my name. When I turned, he said, "I'm proud of you. For standing up to me. For knowing your worth." Those words hit me like a physical blow. They were what I'd wanted to hear for so long, and now that I didn't know what to do with them. Last month, Dad was released from the hospital. He's staying with my brother for now, while he recovers. I've been over a few times for dinner, always with other siblings present, like a buffer. It's still awkward, still tense at times, but there's something different now. A fragile understanding, maybe. Yesterday, I brought over some old photo albums I found at my mom's house, pictures of all of us from when we were little. Dad and I sat on the couch, flipping through them together. He told me stories about each photo, things I'd never known or had forgotten. "This was your first day of kindergarten," he said, pointing to a picture of me in a blue dress with white polka dots. "You were so excited you couldn't sleep the night before. Kept saying you were going to learn everything in the whole wide world." I studied the photo, trying to connect with that excited little girl. "I don't remember that at all. You were always curious," he said. "Always asking questions. Why is the sky blue? Where do birds go at night? How does the TV know what to show?" He smiled faintly. I didn't have answers for half of them. As I was leaving, he handed me an envelope. "Don't open it now," he said. "Just when you're ready." I put it in my purse and drove home, my mind racing. The envelope sat on my kitchen counter for hours while I cleaned my apartment, did laundry, anything to avoid opening it. Finally, around midnight, I made myself a cup of tea and sat down with it. Inside was a letter, several pages long, and a small key. The letter started simply, to my daughter, who deserved better. What followed was the most honest accounting of his life I'd ever heard. His own childhood trauma, his struggles with addiction that he'd hidden from us, his deep shame and regret. He wrote about specific moments, times he'd failed me, times he'd hurt me, times he'd missed. And for each one, a simple, unqualified apology. The key, he explained, was to a safety deposit box. It's not much, he wrote. But I've been putting money aside for you since the day you were born. I never touched it, even when things were bad. It was always meant to be yours. I don't know what to do with any of this. The money, the apologies, this new version of my father who seems so different from the man who hurt me. My therapist says I don't have to decide anything right now. That healing happens on its own timeline. So that's where I am. In this strange limbo between the past and whatever comes next. I still have boundaries, firm ones. I still have days when I'm angry, when all I can remember is the pain. But there are other days now too, days when I can sit across from him at my brother's dinner table and see him as just a person. Flawed. Broken in his own ways. Trying, perhaps too late, to make amends.